Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Justin, and if you're new here, I make videos every week where I go through my budgeting process and allocate the funds that I have available, and I walk you through my thought process and why I'm allocating my budget the way I am, and also provide accountability for myself in the process. This video, however, is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to do kind of a comparative analysis between the two budgeting systems that I use. So I use in my personal finances Monarch Money and YNAB. YNAB stands for You Need a Budget. Monarch Money is just that. They are both softwares, budgeting softwares that have an online and mobile presence. They both link to your accounts and import transactions automatically. And all you have to do is make sure that they're categorized right, make sure that the details about that transaction are correct, the amount, the merchant, things like that. Systems like this make it very streamlined and automated and super simple to budget every month, keep track of your budget, and also analyze your spending and income to make changes as necessary. I have been using Monarch Money for a year now, a little over, actually I think right at a year. I'm going to be coming up on my renewal soon. So I'm more familiar with Monarch Money just because my experience with it is more. However, I have been using YNAB for about a month now, coming up on the end of my free trial, and I've already committed to spending the yearly amount to have a year subscription for YNAB. I have also committed to renewing my Monarch Money subscription. So at least for 2025, I will be using both systems to accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish. So what I hope this video does for you is give you a good analysis of both of the systems, what's different about them, what's similar about them, who I think one is for, and help you, if you're on the fence, reach a decision on which one might be best for you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and give you a brief overview of Monarch Money, and then we'll jump over to YNAB, and then I'll kind of close it out with my final thoughts. So this is the dashboard for Monarch Money. You're able to customize this a little bit in what you want to see. You can also kind of move these widgets around. Personally, I really only care about my budget at the macro level. So I look at my income and expenses, and I like this spending chart that allows you to compare two different time periods to see your overall trend. So I typically use the month versus month or the month versus last year, same month. Some of the other tabs, you're going to have an accounts tab. This is where you can monitor all of your accounts, whether they're linked or manual. You'll also have your transactions that you're going to be able to categorize on this page. You have your budget, which is going to be basically the same as most other systems. You'll have your income and expenses groups, and then you can do individual groups with individual budget items. You'll have your budget amount, your actual, and then your remaining. And over here on the far right, it'll kind of give you an assessment of your budget overall. Are you under, over, or on budget? The reoccurring tab is just that. It's your reoccurring bills. This is where you're going to go to see all of those regular bills that are happening on a regular basis, whether that's biweekly, you can have your paychecks on here. Monthly, you can have your regular monthly bills. Anything that's quarterly or annually, like car insurance is usually every 6 months, or vehicle registration, typically once a year. You're going to be able to see those items here. You're able to see it in a list form. And also what I really like is the calendar form. So I usually have my paychecks listed on here. That way I can see what bills need to be paid and prioritized between my paychecks. This goals, I haven't used it a lot. There have been a lot of complaints around the goals and how they're not easy to manipulate, how they're not really easy to use. And so I haven't used them in quite a while. This investments, I haven't used at all. Not only is it new to Monarch, but I don't really care about my investments right now and tracking them. They're going to do what they're going to do. There's nothing I can do about it. The thing that I like the most about Monarch is the reports. So you have a cash flow report that gives you basically your income and your expenses, and are you over or under in that regard. You can look at different time periods. You can kind of see month to month. You can have a bar chart. You can have a sand key. So there's different options that you can kind of customize this view for you. But there's also in this report section a cash flow report that allows you to see a little bit more detail in terms of the transactions, kind of the summary of your transactions. You're able to filter a little bit more, see different time periods. And so I usually spend a lot of time on this cash flow just to kind of see, am I making progress in spending less than I make? Some of the other reports, typical is going to be a spending report. It's going to allow you to see your spending over those same time periods, kind of broken out by category. And then you can also see your income. And then this sand key is that same graph that I showed you before. It just kind of gives you a good visual of both your income and your expenses in the same place. Unfortunately, YNAB doesn't offer something like this. There is an income versus expense report or page, but it's not a visual so much as it is just kind of metrics. And so the reason I'm using Monarch and YNAB together is because I like some of these reports that Monarch provides that YNAB doesn't. In terms of the budgeting system, they are different budgeting system types. Monarch is really cash flow heavy, which is why they have this cash flow report and a detailed cash flow report. The purpose of this budgeting system is you tell it how much money you're expecting to make in that month and how much you're expecting to spend. And it doesn't matter when you spend that money. It doesn't matter when you get that income. All that matters is that you're getting it in that month and you're essentially spending more, or you're spending less in expenses than you are bringing in income for that month. So if you are like me, or like I was, where I was, and I'll show you, last year I was negative almost $6,000 in cash flow. So I had a really bad spending problem. We look at this year, it is completely 180. I am almost $8,000 in net income as opposed to being negative. So if you're struggling with cash flow and you're just looking for a basic budget setup, Monarch Money might be for you. The things that I don't like about Monarch Money is that you can manually input transactions. However, when they import, there's no matching or linking of those. And so you're going to have duplicate transactions that you're going to have to manage and get rid of the one that you don't want to keep. The other thing that I don't like is that the budget uses whole numbers, which means there is an element of rounding. Sometimes things are rounded up and sometimes things are rounded down. For me personally, the rounding down is a problem because if you spend a certain amount and it's not over the 50-cent threshold, it's going to round down and it looks like you spent less than you actually did. Or on the flip side, if you have a rollover set up, sometimes that rollover amount isn't accurate because of rounding. Speaking of rollovers, a less minor thing that I don't like is that you have to manually set up rollovers for each individual item by toggling this on and off. That is not a problem if you don't have a whole lot of, budget items that you're working with. But if you have a lot, it could be pretty tedious. Another thing is if you end up not wanting the rollover feature, but you've had the rollover feature for a while, if you turn it off, it will reverse everything in the past in terms of rollovers. And so if you are going to go back and look at some past budgets, by turning off that rollover feature, it may mess up some of your balance. And that may cause issues for some people. It certainly did for me. So I am only using Monarch Money for the reports, mainly the spending and the cash flow, just to make sure that I'm keeping my cash flow in check. One of the other things that I have struggled with, and this is a common complaint that I've seen, is customer service. The level of customer service that you get with Monarch is not up to par. There are issues that arise when you link accounts. There could be disconnections, things like that. Monarch Money, it's like pulling teeth to get them to fix the issue. Most of the time, they tell you they can't do anything about it. And so at a certain point, when half of your accounts don't link and don't import, you're basically having to do everything manually. So what are you paying for? On the flip side, you have YNAB, which again is you need a budget. The budget is very similar. You have your groups and your categories. You can customize them how you see fit. You have your assigned amount, which is your budget amount, your activity, which is your actual amount, and then your available, which is what you have left. In Monarch, if you have an irregular bill and you want to figure out how much to set aside each month to reach that bill amount by the time that bill is due, you have to manually calculate that on your own. YNAB, you can use targets in order to accomplish that. So if I go into my January budget, you'll see that I have some non-regular bills like my car registration. That's an annual bill. I know that I need about $388 by the 15th of December every year. And so what I've done is I've set a target for that amount. I've told it what date I need it by. And it does the calculation on how much money I need to set aside in that month in order to be on track and have that money available when that bill comes due. Additionally, YNAB does math within the input window of your budget. Monarch doesn't do that. If you're trying to, figure things out, like I have $3.33 in there, but I want to add another, $5.75 for some reason, you'll have to get a calculator out and figure out what that end number is. Whereas in here, you can just use the 4 operators and do simple calculations. As you can see, YNAB is by the penny. And so it is more detailed. It is truly a $0 budget system, whereas Monarch takes a little bit of work to get it to be a $0 budget. The rollover function of any leftover or available funds in a category is automatically set. You don't have to manually go in and set an item to be a rollover. So that's also really convenient. The biggest difference between Monarch Money and YNAB is Monarch Money, you tell it how much you're making in that month and how much you're spending in that month. YNAB, you are basically telling it how much money you have available right now to allocate to your budget. So let's say you get a paycheck today, you log in, it's going to assign that money in money to be assigned. And that is the only amount of money that you have available to put into your budget. The next time you get paid, you'll have more to budget. But YNAB is a system for those who need to curb their spending or overspending. And by doing that, they limit the amount of money that you can budget based on the amount of money that you have available to budget. So they also have some custom views. So let's say you wanted to kind of filter different bills. You can customize your views. I've seen most people use like a view for the bills that are between the 1st and the 15th, and then another view for the bills that are between the 16th and the end of the month. I don't have any need for custom views quite yet, so the default ones that you see are enough for me right now. You also have all of your accounts here. They link the same way. What I like in terms of the transactions is that unlike in Monarch, where there's no linking of manually entered transactions before it imports, in YNAB there is. So let's say you want to really be intentional about keeping up with your spending. And so what I do when I spend money, whether I swipe a card, transfer money, whatever, at that time, I add a transaction for that. And when that account imports that transaction, when it hits my bank, it will automatically match that up and I won't have a duplicate transaction. All you have to do is approve that match, make sure that it matched it properly, and go on about your day. The reports, some of the reports are similar, some of them are not. This spending breakdown is very similar to what you get in Monarch. You're able to see based on your categories and your groups. You're able to see based on different time periods. You're able to kind of filter different things in and out. You're able to kind of filter accounts. Over here, you have a more broken down, and you can kind of see your transactions individually for that line item. You can also kind of hover over and click on these items to see the transactions as well. What I wish YNAB had was a comparative picture of this month versus a different time period, right? Maybe you want to see in one area how much I spent last month, how much I spent this month. Am I spending more? Am I spending less? Maybe you want to see, just like me, having a cash flow problem. Last year, I spent way too much money. And so I want to see, am I spending less money this year than I did last year around the same time? Unfortunately, you can't do that in YNAB. The only thing you can do is pick a time period, and this is just a static time period. There is no comparative analysis of your spending. I guess you could use this income versus expense, but like I said, it's more metrics than a visual. And so it could be really difficult to kind of compare one month versus another because you would have to kind of scroll through to find last year's spending and compare it to this year. There is a net worth. It's not as good as the Monarch Money, I think, but it's available. So yeah, I mean, the reports, I think in Monarch speak for themselves. There is a lot more functionality with them. The cash flow is a really important thing for a lot of people. So being able to see that report is certainly important to me and is the reason why I'm going to stick with using Monarch at least for the next year while also using YNAB. Customer service for YNAB is amazing. The very same issues with connectivity issues that I've expressed with the Monarch Money customer service people and basically getting shut down with any help. I brought to YNAB's customer service and they have gone above and beyond to try to fix it on their level. And since they have identified that the issue that I'm experiencing is beyond their control, they have sent that request or that issue to the bank and third-party data providers for them to kind of look into it. Monarch Money has never offered that level of service. They've always just kind of ended, if it's not working, it's not working, manually track everything. Well, what am I paying for if I'm trying to automate this and I'm still having to, manually track things? Just doesn't make any sense. The only other difference that I want to point out is that In YNAB, you can have multiple budgets, whereas Monarch Money, you can only have one. So I know of a couple on YouTube that budgets their regular spending, just like us normal people, but they also have a separate budget in YNAB for their student loans. So if you're a person that wants to keep separate budgets, that capability is possible in YNAB. You can't do that in Monarch, as far as I'm aware. You only have the one budget to work with. So both of these allow for collaboration with household members. So your partner in Monarch will have their own sort of view. I believe the same thing is possible in YNAB with the YNAB together function. It's just me, so I'm not really in tune with those at this time. But yeah, I mean, in terms of price, YNAB is a little bit more expensive. Personally, I think it's worth it. My YNAB subscription for the year was $118 for YNAB, and my subscription for the same year with Monarch was $99.99. But again, you're getting so much more in terms of customer service with YNAB, so it's worth it. The matching of transactions that you manually put in, that can be a lot of work and very cumbersome to deal with in Monarch. You don't have to deal with that. The resources that are available for YNAB, again, YNAB has been around for, decades, and so the resources available are plentiful between YouTube videos, online resources, their website. Monarch Money has only been around for, I think, 5 to 8 years. And so they're still in that startup phase where they're still kind of getting their footing. And I think that shows through with their price and also what you get in terms of customer service. Who do I think Monarch is for? Monarch is probably best for somebody who is just looking to get into that budgeting space, who doesn't need to be super detailed with their budget, maybe looking to curb their cash flow. Like me, I had a cash flow problem. Monarch Money was perfect for that. I have since fixed it. Monarch Money is no longer the best system for me. If you like reports and being able to analyze your spending and compare it to different time periods, obviously Monarch Money is going to provide you that in their reports. YNAB is for those who are more detailed, right down to the penny budgeters. Maybe you're having an issue with spending money that you don't have. And so YNAB's system of only allowing you to allocate the money that you have available might help you curb that problem of overspending. So yeah, I think I'm going to use both of them for 2025. I might consider just going to YNAB in 2026, depending on how I feel about the reports over the next year. But yeah, I hope this video helps you if you're on the fence between both of these products, or maybe just getting into the budget software space. If there's a question you have that I didn't go over and that you can't really find the answer to, go ahead and leave a comment. If I can help you, I certainly will respond. Maybe there's somebody out there that sees your question and might have an answer for you and will respond. If you are interested in my channel and watching me allocate my funds in YNAB, go ahead and subscribe, turn on that notification bell. That way you get notified when I make my regular videos every week. If you're also interested in how I use Monarch Money, typically at the end of every month or at the end of every year, I will do a video on the last Friday of that month or that year, where I talk about my spending at the macro level, and I do that in Monarch. So I have a video for the month of November, a closeout video for month of November, where I go over that in some detail. So go ahead and check that video out. And look out for my videos every week. On Wednesdays, every other Wednesday, I make a video, and every Friday, I make a video. So with that, I will see you in the next video.